Good morning, Maine exporters, and welcome to Maine Online Global Program, Go Global with Website Localization and Online Marketing. We are absolutely delighted to have this opportunity to go through an international online marketing for Maine exporters. My name is Susanna Hardy, and I'm with IBT Online. Before we start, I'm going to give a little bit of housekeeping rules. So the first is really that this is a part of a Go Global webinar series that we hold at IBT as information for our clients and for exporters across the world. What you would expect during this webinar, it's about 45 minutes long. During the webinar, there are 3 polls. So we will expect you to jump onto grab your mouse and click on the buttons that most correspond to your answers and during the polls. There's also a live Q&A. You can put your questions into the chat box or the question box. Some of you will have a chat box, some of you seem to have a question box, I'm not sure. But in any case, we will gather them up at the end and answer as many as we can in the time possible. We also have 3 handouts for you. These are infographics about Maine, some of the main markets that we think that you're most interested in. And then, of course, you will be getting a copy of the slide deck and recording as well. At the very end, we have a very, very brief survey. I think there's 5 questions. Again, very much yes, no questions, which will just help us allocate resources better, figure out more of what you need in Maine to get great exporting, to increase your exports. And finally, just the last little thing, our next webinar is on the 28th of November, and it's International E-Commerce for Business. So with that, sit back and enjoy. And let's talk about online marketing and website localization for Maine exporters. First, let me introduce, though, our speakers. So I'm Susanna, as I said, I'm in the middle there. I'm the Chief Content Officer for IBT Online. Here is also my colleague, Jared Grossman. He's an online business development manager. Jared is based in the United States, not too far from you. He's not in Maine exactly, but he's not too far, just down the shoreline a little bit. And Jared is multilingual, multinational, very webby, very techy, all the things that we need for great websites, for great online presence in today's world. He is also 100% focused on small mid-cap companies exporting, as is the whole of IBT. Billy Carey from International Trade Information Specialist from OITC. I'm sure that most of you know her, and I will let Billy also introduce herself when she talks more about Maine and the facilities and export assistance that Maine has to offer for you. A quick word on IBT Online. Who are we? We are a private company. We're a US company. We have offices across Europe as well, and we have been in existence since 2002, and we're 100% focused on SMEs, small, mid-sized companies, and helping them export. And we do that using online tools. So essentially what that means is that we build and manage corporate websites for international markets. And we'll tell you a bit more about some of our experiences in that and some of the things we've seen in terms of best practice and what we think could benefit some of the Maine exporters as well. Today's agenda, here we go, helping Maine exporters. Then we're going to talk about why do exporters need international websites? Why do you people in Maine, what do you need this for? What is localization? What is website localization? How can you use this? And here we'll give some case studies and examples of how companies are using localized websites to increase their sales or to help their distributors or whatever. And then finally, just a quick word on something called the Maine Online Global Program. So with that, I wanted to also now to talk about helping Maine exporters. And Billy, if I could pass over to you to talk a little bit about the Maine International Trade Center. Billy?
Sure, great. Are you passing me the screen or just the...
Yes, please. Just
right.
the talk.
Oh, okay. Well, Hi, my name is Billy Carey, and I am the Trade Information Specialist here at the Maine International Trade Center. Um, there are kind of four main things that we do here, including trade shows, trade missions, trade education, and trade assistance. And so my realm is in the trade education and trade assistance. Meaning, if you are looking for market reports for a certain country, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at Mitzi for any research assistance. This program is also part of our Global U programming for this year on international marketing and global social media, this webinar. So please enjoy. Reach out to us if you have any further questions after the webinar, and I will pass it back to you, Susanna.
Thank you, Billy. Before we start, I would like to launch just a very quick poll, just a very quick poll about, do you or have you used in the past trade assistance services from the MITC? Do you use them currently? Do you know about them? Do you use them regularly, occasionally? Are you thinking about it? And I can say basically that we have still some people voting coming in, but we have basically 50% of just, it's about 50% use them occasionally, but about a third are using the services on a regular basis, which is great. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to see that there's a good take up of the Maine International Trade Center assistance programs. So let's now talk about why exporters need international websites. And I started to think about what was the best way to really get this message across in a short period of time. And then I figured, well, it's kind of like they're probably all in the middle of like a coffee break or something in the middle of what I'm talking about. So I thought I could just do a very quick cookie experiment with you. And you bear with me, these slides go quickly. But I want you to take a quick look at some of the slides that I'm about to show. So for example, this one here is, Schokoladengebäck. It's all in euros. It's all in German. It's kind of hard to find and kind of hard to understand. You might prefer Bonne Maman. Bonne Maman, I know, is a global brand. I'm sure you have it in Maine as well. Here, it's again in French, but it's delicious chocolate, some of my favorite. This one, the people we work with who are Chinese, they insist that these taste like chocolate. They don't look like chocolate, but that, anyway, there you go. 1688 is a Chinese online platform. Sam's Club, this puzzled me for a while because I was thinking $107 for some chocolate biscuits, but then of course it's pesos. Don't know what you feel about this. Sam's Club's in pesos. Or this one. I'm sitting in the UK at the moment. I'm sitting in England at the moment. So I know all about Fortnum Mason. Now these are in pounds, and of course they're called biscuits, not cookies. So this as a cookie test is not ideal because these are biscuits. So I wanted to ask right from the beginning, out of some of these, and here I've included chocolate biscuits from Mrs. Fields. Out of those screenshots, which appeal to you? Why? And I guess this is sort of a lighthearted way, really, of trying to bring home a message, basically that the world is online. If you find you're running around all day in your business, and you're running around and you're on your screens, on your laptops, on your iPhones, on your desktops all day long, and your kids are too, well, guess what? The rest of the world is like that as well. Some countries even more plugged in fact, than the United States. So out of a total population of 7.5 billion, over 50% are online. That means online on a very regular basis, daily. And what are they doing online? Well, most of all, what they're doing is they're communicating. So about 3.2 billion people are on social media at all times. That's 42% of the population are on social media, communicating. And what this has led to is a real paradigm shift in company behavior and in the way that companies interact with their customers, with their suppliers, with their supply chain, their competitors, everyone. And you used to be able to have this bilateral, binomial relationship, you plus a customer one-on-one. Today, it is a very different environment. It is more complex, let's say. It is multifaceted, and it is customer-centric. The customer, whether it's B2B or B2C, decides when he wants to buy, what he wants to buy, and he can look at your competitors, at you, at other people's views. He can go online. He can look at all kinds of things online, including even social media to get recommendations. So this starts to get really important, and it's not just about chocolate biscuits, obviously. It's this applies as well to the B2B world as it does to the B2C world. So this paradigm shift really is at the core of international marketing. Your objective for international marketing is to somehow influence some of those customer-to-customer arrows, or customer-to-company, customer-competitor, customer-partner arrows. Somewhere along that, you want your customer-to-customer to talk favorably about you. And how do you do it? That's the key. And I guess for us, the end game really came to say you can use online tools to do that. So basically for us, why do exporters need localized websites? They need them to get found, to be understood, to do business. As simple as that. And from our perspective, I know we're talking our own book here, as the English would say, but from our perspective, an exporter needs exporter websites, arguably even more than they need a domestic website. In your domestic market, particularly if you're a Maine company, chances are companies in Maine, your suppliers, your partners, your competitors, your clients already know you. How often do they go on your website? Never. But for your export markets, they don't know you. You have little footprint there by definition. So you need to increase that footprint as much as possible to nurture your brand. And the best way to do that is through a website from our point of view. Now, let's now talk about what is website localization. What are these localized websites that we keep talking about? And how can we use them? What are they? The best way that I have to explain what is a website, a localized website localization in as short a time as possible, is to go back to basics and really talk about search engines and how search engines work. Now, Google, for example, is the sort of, the giant search engine of the world. But Google in the UK is very different from Google in the United States. It's different from Google in Mexico or Japan or Saudi Arabia. These are all very different Googles. Google has basically, you have to think about it as they have over 192 different Googles for 192 different countries that they are in. So each Google is localized in that sense. I think what's important, again, is that Google as a search engine is market specific and client focused. All search engines take the customer, the client, the searcher at the center. So you as a company, again, want to appeal to that search engine to say, I am relevant to that customer. If that customer is looking for chocolate biscuits, they need to find me if I sell chocolate biscuits. How do you do that in these different markets? How do you do that in Japan, in Mexico, in Germany? You need to have a localized website. You need to please Google in Germany. And so Google in Germany needs to think of you as a fully German, integrated, relevant website for the German searcher or whatever market you're looking for. So Google's not the only search engine in the world, but it's the biggest by far. I've put down the market share there in the right-hand side of your screen. The other two big ones is Yandex for sort of Russia, and then the huge behemoth is also Baidu in China. Baidu are also reaching out into a lot of other Southeast Asian markets and India. There's quite a little bit of a market turf war going on in India at the moment for search engine dominance. So you can see that Google has very, very strong market share. Google has a much stronger market share across Latin America and Europe than it does actually in the United States. In Europe and Latin America, it has over 90% market share. Baidu has about 75% market share in China. Google has about 2%. So it's really a very diverse market. If you want to go to China, you've got to please Baidu. If you want to go to Russia, you've got to please Yandex. For virtually the rest of the world, you're okay on Google. Now, I said that Google looks differently, appeals differently, and so on. Now, I didn't have any colleagues of mine in Maine, but I did reach out to a colleague of mine in Boston, and I said, take a screenshot of what it looks like when you put google.com red shoes. And then I did google.co.uk red shoes, because I'm sitting in England. And I just wanted to give you a screenshot. I'm sorry, it's a bit fuzzy, but anyway, hopefully you can see it. The first searches in the United States or in Boston are very different from what I have in the United Kingdom. And yet this is an extremely banal search. Red shoes is pretty well generic. It's like, ball bearings for manufacturing. It's just so common. And yet the search results are very different according to where you are sitting. So it's just an example that search engines are market specific, client focused. As we said, for Google, for Baidu, and all of them. So that's sort of at the core of what a website that is localized is looking like. So to group it all into one slide, I put it all the sort of attributes that we consider important. And there are basically 10 of them that we consider important to have a localized website. And it's obviously adapted to the local language. It's translated, optimized, adapted, and so on. But that's 1 out of 10 criteria that we use for localization. You've got to get the right domain name. Otherwise, again, Google, Baidu will not appreciate you, will not like you, will not put out your tweets, your Facebooks, your website won't be optimized. It just won't be seen. You've got to use the right content management system. You've got to make sure you've got the right regulatory requirements. And these are all things, by the way, that are going to be becoming increasingly important. In the last few years, we have seen a massive growth in the need for regulatory requirements, for example. So here you go. This is basically what we call website localization. And this is the platform on which you will use your international online marketing. But at the core of it, in order to have effective international online marketing, you've got to have strong website localization skills. So with that, I wanted to say, let's have another poll. Sorry about that. Just close this one, and let's give you another poll. Here we go. Poll number 2. Do you have localized websites for your export markets? Do you already have websites for your core important export markets? And at the moment, about a quarter of you have some for some export markets, but the vast majority are basically saying our distributors do this for us, or we have 1 or 2, but our distributors are doing this for us. So a lot of, and actually 40% of you are now saying, no, we don't have any. So anyway, that's we're thinking about, and I hope that this talk inspires you to understand a bit more how you can use localized websites and get on board on that international world. So now about social media networks. Again, this is sort of a world map here of the most important social media networks across the world. You'll see again, this is the primary one. There's if you go on, if you have an interest in this, I can show you there's a lot more information about what are the second most favorite, the third most favorite, and so on. And those are very interesting slides in terms of strategies for international investors, but international exporters. You can see the dominance though across the world of Facebook. And I will get onto Facebook in a second, but I think it's interesting to see just how widespread Facebook is. Again, though, this huge difference, Russia, totally different. And of course, China, totally different. China has very much its own environment, and Russia also very much its own environment. So, there's a sort of a big map on that. I have some handouts here for you, and you should be able to see them. If you go to the right-hand toolbar that should say handouts, and you should be able to click on those handouts and drag them into and download them. They are basically showing an online environment for some of the key markets, Canada, China, and Mexico. Because from talking with the MITC and from Maine export assistance people, we gathered that these are some of the markets that interest you the most. So we thought we would be helpful if you could see some information about these individual markets. So how does Canada look online? How does Mexico look online? And how does China look online? So if you'd like that information, you should be able to just click on those handouts, download them, and then look at them at your leisure. Right, back onto social media now. I wanted to give you this example. Again, just like the search engines, just like a website, just like your paradigm shift in business, social media platforms are market specific and client focused. And the way that I can best perhaps help with this is to show you I'm sorry, here we go. Is to show you the difference between trem and comboio, Brazil and Portuguese. So on the one side, you have Portuguese, on the other side, you have Brazilian Portuguese. If you're not using the right term, you're not going to be found. It's just as simple as that. So if, for example, one of our clients he makes things for the train industry, manufactured parts for the train industry. And he came to us, when he first came to us, he said, I have social media, I've paid tons for this and nothing's working. And Brazil's the largest market and nothing's working. And we looked at it and said, yeah, but you're using the wrong word. He was using comboio, which is the Portuguese word for train. But in Brazil, the word is trem. And 95% of people looking on the web look for trem, not comboio. So that's, again, it's social media, it's Facebook in both cases, Google in both cases. And if you're sitting in Brazil and tap comboio, you're not going to find a lot. If you tap trem, you'll find a lot. So again, it's a case of being market specific and client focused. I wanted to go through also some examples of some of the very large companies. These are companies which have used social media and online presence right from the very beginning, right from their inception. And probably the three that are most well known globally are, Apple, Airbnb, Uber. These are companies that integrated websites, localization, localized international marketing from the very onset, so that they were able to really push forward and go international at an accelerated rate. These are companies that are still very young, but from Uber and Airbnb, for example, they just went and did global from the start. They said, okay, we have to roll out international websites one after the other in order to grow fast enough. Now, getting back to our concerns today, we think very strongly that the tools exist today to help small mid-cap companies do the same rollout. Prices have come down, things are easier to roll out. There's no reason why a small mid-cap company cannot take advantage of localized websites and online marketing to boost their international presence as well. A couple of the major platforms in the world which you should be thinking about. YouTube. Obviously, I'm sure most of you use that already on your websites. It's a great way to boost brand recognition, to show off and showcase your products and all that. It is the second most visited website in the world. And in fact, 80% of YouTube views outside the United States. And just as you remember, I was saying for Google has about 192 different Googles. YouTube has about 90 different versions of YouTube. depending on the country. So again, there's this, this is a company that has said we need to localize our platforms in order to be relevant to those countries. Now let's do the same for Facebook. Here we have Facebook. Obviously, it's enormous, but just like Google, just like all the other search engines and YouTube, it's available in over 100 languages. There's over 100 different Facebooks, basically. And if you group together Facebook with WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger, it really has this global huge reach. You're looking at 4.5 billion people that it reaches. I mean, obviously, many of those are duplicates, but that is, if you remember going back to that shot of all the world map of social media networks, Google is by far the dominant one outside China. So probably where most of our clients start in terms of online marketing campaigns, it's Google. But Google varies significantly in country to country, and I'll give you some examples of that in a minute. You can't really talk about Google without mentioning also WeChat. And I know Maine is, you're all on the eastern coast, but nevertheless, I presume that you all know WeChat by now. It is really, I consider it like a proxy for being online in China. It hit over 1 billion users in March of this year. It is very, very different from Facebook. It is both. It's like Facebook with a messenger, with a WhatsApp, with a phone, with Skype, with a wallet, everything combined in one place. It's also a totally closed system. You can't just go on it and create an account. You have to basically, someone within Facebook or within WeChat has to like you enough you have to gain enough traction that someone goes and invites you in. So it's quite different how you looking at the China market. But if you are looking at the China market, you have to have a strategy that drives towards going and having an official account on WeChat. Because, as I said, over 1 billion people now in China have WeChat accounts. 1/3 of all time on the internet spent by Chinese people is spent on WeChat. All right, this leads us to our third poll. Let's see if I can do this one correctly. So this leads us to our third poll. It's also our last poll. And it's basically just going to ask you, do you use social media and marketing today for your exports? Do you use social media and marketing to drive up your exports today? Are you using it domestically? Are you using it in your export markets at all? Are you using it in any of your main markets? It looks to me like there's a few of you using it in your main export markets and in all your export markets, but the majority of you, a good third, a good nearly 40%, use it domestically but not internationally. Well, I'm happy with that. It's a great reason to be on this webinar. So let's dive into a couple of the examples of how Maine exporters we think that you could use localized websites. We wanted to showcase some examples, some practical examples, some real examples here. So localized websites for us, the core reasons that our clients tell us that they want to have a localized website, a local website, is to build a global brand. And then there are 4 sort of sub reasons, as it were. Most of them say we want to generate more leads, we want the distributors to find us, we need to be credible in that market and trustworthy, we need to be relevant to that market. A lot of our clients say that to us too. So those are the core reasons, but it all comes down to building these global brands. Let's give you some examples. Bullman's is a company. They're a mid-sized U.S. company. They're owner, management owned. They sell to lots of different verticals. They sell to schools, food processors, retail packaging, lots of different things. And they really started off with saying we need some European websites because we have fantastic distributors. but we need more distributors because it's such a big mosaic, Europe. We need, a couple of different distributors in every market. And a website might be a good way of finding distributors. So we first built the websites in Germany and the UK, France, and that seemed to work quite well. And that's an example of their UK one. And then it sort of expanded from that significantly, and they now have websites in Japan, Korea, Australia, Saudi Arabia, and half a dozen other countries. In each case, they're now looking at putting out content and driving forward their business and their knowledge and their brand. What's really interesting is that, as the CEO herself says, the only thing they've done differently from the past is these websites and this online marketing, and their exports are now double their previous levels and their previous growth rates. So they've really discovered this and said, this is not a high-tech industry. They make basically paper cutters. Paper cutters, they're the paper cutter in the world. No other paper cutter is really getting out there and doing this. So they're very, very pleased with those results. I would say that you can listen to Anne talking on any one of on our website and going through more detail about how she thinks the website works, what she did in each case, why she decided to go for those markets at those times. If you go onto our website, which is ibt.onl, and then go to success stories, you'll find all of her testimonial and a video there. So the next one I wanted to show you as well is ASG. Again, it's a US company. This was a bit different. They make a very tech product, and they knew that their biggest market was China. And they said, okay, we've got really two fantastic agents. They get the leads, they have the contacts, but they're not able to close the deals. Why is this? And the Chinese agents kept saying to them, well, it's a little bit of tech. It's very techy, your product, and maybe we need something more to show that you really are committed to the Chinese market. And so the CEO, Hugo, and again, you can listen to his testimonial on our website, said, okay, let's build a website and see what that happens. So we built these websites for them, and the distributors and agents were delighted. They used that, and within 3 months, they landed their biggest order ever. Basically, they said, the websites allow the clients to really understand and see the product in a way that the physical paper brochure never did, in a way that the agent was never able to do. So the website has a little video on it, has the pictures on it, has testimonials on it, so it's enough to convince the client to actually sign the deal. It also, on a deeper level, told the Chinese audience that there is a commitment, that ASG is making a commitment to that market, believe in the market long term, and therefore invest in that market enough to actually have a website. So again, that was seen as a very positive thing for their business, and they had a very strong return. After China, they said, let's roll this out. Let's do more markets. So they now have other websites as well across the world. Ocean Optics is much more mid-sized. I mean, they're not so small, but a U.S. company again, and they really felt that there were two markets where they were just not connecting at all. And so they said, basically, we've got to really push this in Mexico and Brazil. We're just simply not connecting. And again, Mexico and Brazil are very, very plugged-in markets. It has people spend much more time on the internet in Mexico and Brazil than they do, for example, in the United States. They're on social media for hours more than they are in the States. They blow the stats for the U.S. out of the water. Same thing for Brazil. So again, these are very responsive markets to websites and to online marketing. A last example that I wanted to highlight really is just because it's got some good e-commerce enabled, and for a very difficult market, which is Brazil. Brazil is a very, very tedious market to get into. It's very paper orientated. It's very, very, very bureaucratic. And so an e-commerce site is not always the easiest, but if you have a localized website, it takes a lot of that hassle out of the of the equation. So again, if you are looking at e-commerce solutions, it's a bit out of the scope of this presentation. But if you're looking at e-commerce solutions, then a localized website allows you to circumvent a lot of the difficulties that you'll find. Right, a quick breather. We wanted now to look at the Maine Online Global Program and what this means. Now, this is really a program that we put together a while ago, basically to try and help Maine exporters access these services, to Maine exporters to say, okay, let's go for this. How can we help you get localized websites and online marketing? And what is something that we can put together a program for you? And what we did was, sorry for the enormous amounts of words on this page, but it's just really, to summarize it, it's just really that we worked, tried to figure out a way that would be an easy step for a Maine exporter to say, yes, I want to have a localized website. What does that mean? Which markets? How do I do it? And so we've put together a series of options, or actually two basic options, which Maine exporters can grasp in order to basically have these websites. The first is option A. It basically delivers you two countries, websites, in two countries. There's a typo there. Each website is 2,000 words, not 200. Sorry about that. 2,000 words and 12 web pages. So that's each website that we look after and make sure it's fully translated and fully optimized. Translating is easy. Optimized for the local market. And let's say you choose, Brazil and China, or Canada and New Zealand, whichever markets you want, whichever markets you're targeting that you think are the most important. We will build two websites for you. We will host it. We'll have the right kind of Google Analytics for you. We will optimize it for the local search engines. We can link it to your US website. We'll give you some training in terms of the Google Analytics that you'll understand it. We will buy the domain name for you and give it to you. This is, if anyone has ever done a website or has ever spent any time doing this, this is a terrific deal. Take my word for it. Some of you might have even just done some translation of some physical brochures and think of the hassle of doing that and getting a good translation versus getting two 24/7 working websites for you that are localized in that market that you can then do whatever you want with. We're very, very happy and proud to say that the Maine expert assistance people thought this is a good thing, and are willing to contribute $3,000 towards the cost of that, so that the end cost to you is not $12,000 but actually $9,000. And again, $9,000 for two localized websites is pretty good. Option B is really much more wide open. It's for those companies who say, well, I don't actually want two websites. I need a seriously large website in China that does full e-commerce, that does, that it's fully linked. I have 40 pages of references. I have YouTube or equivalent of that. I have Weibo. I have lots of other things to put on that website. I have to have secure zones, all kinds of things. So it's whatever you basically want. Again, this typically takes us about 4 months. And again, the budget is purely a result then of the specifications that you would hand in. But again, the Maine expert assistance is willing to contribute up to $3,000 for that. So those are sort of the options that Maine are putting forward for their companies, their exporters, to help them get the localized website that they need for the international marketing. Which I think is really terrific and very innovative of Maine, and to be taken advantage of. So it's quite a well-worn path. Many companies have done this in the past. And we would encourage you to, as I said, to go onto our website and have a look at some of those testimonials. And I'm sure amongst the testimonials, you'll find a company that you say, hey, this is just like us. I can relate to this guy. He's in a similar situation to what we were in. And there you go. So localized websites, online marketing allow you to be found, to be understood, and to do business internationally. I hope that's sort of 40 minutes. We said it'd be 45 minutes. We've left a little bit of time for questions, and I can see, in fact, there are quite a few questions for that. So in a way, I'd like to actually start with Jared and just bring in my colleague, because I have spoken enough. So Jared, I'm going to field the first question to you, if that's okay. Jared, the first question is rather sort of interesting one. It's, if you build the websites, do you own them or do we own them? So Jared, who owns the websites, Jared?
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. And that's a really good question. And the answer is the company owns it. So while we do build the website, it's ultimately the company's website and something that they will own in that market.
Terrific. So you own the websites. The next question I might take, I think it relates also to the poll number 2 about localized websites. It's really talking about, we have websites internationally, but they're all owned and managed by our distributors. So basically, you don't have those websites there. You have your distributors, your international distributors have your online presence internationally. And a lot of companies have that as a route, and I understand that. It feels like a very natural thing to do. You hire someone in market partner, from some market far away from you, and they're gonna do the logistics and the after sales, and they're gonna generate leads for you. And so why not? They should have your web presence. But in our experience, it's not actually an ideal solution. And we've clients have often come to us saying, I've gotten stuck here with a distributor internationally. What do I do? If your distributor owns your international presence online, that can't be a good thing for your brand development, really. Or it can be a very dangerous thing, let's say, for your international development. Perhaps also distributors are not the best people to look at in terms of expertise, in terms of website or of online marketing. And I'll sort of leave the answer at that. So in our experience, it's better that you own your brand internationally. Jared, there's another question. This question is about hosting. Are you okay on that one? Hosting. Why do I need to host locally? If you remember, that was one of the criteria of online marketing. Why host internationally? Why can't I host in the United States?
Yeah, that's another great question. And it's one of the credentials for a fully localized website, but it's a very important one. Hosting things locally really allows you to be found in that market. Search engines often that are hosted locally in that market before any other outside websites. And then sort of another benefit of hosting things locally is for speed and ease of use. If you host things locally, it's just a quicker response time for the users, so they can more easily navigate the site. It responds better, and if there's downloadable documents or downloadable material on the site, it's easier and faster to download. So really, it's 2 reasons. 1, it does improve your ranking within search engines, and 2, it does provide your user with a better experience as they navigate your websites.
Thanks, Jared. That's great. So hosting locally, yes, you have to do it. But there are also very safe ways of doing that. And we, for example, use some of these very, very large multinational companies who have servers located internationally. Well, another question I have, which is sort of a very short question, is where do I start? Someone's written in, where do I start? I guess the first step really is deciding which markets you want. Which export markets are either your target markets or the work. And typically we find clients come to us and they say, these are our strongest export markets. So we're going to double down on them to increase our business with them. We're going to increase our business by adding websites to them. Some clients, however, come to us and say, those markets interest us. We don't have anything there yet. We'd like to test them out a little bit by having a website. So you can use either strategy. I'd say the majority take their strongest markets. So your 2 strongest markets, those are the ones that you want to start with. And then where do you start? Well, you start by either contacting us or contacting Billy or or Cheryl or anyone else within the Maine export assistance teams that you probably all know. Right. Well, we're absolutely bang on time. We've taken 45 minutes. I think that there's one more question that's just come in as well, which is for the social media, do I have to have different social medias for different markets? And I guess what that means is, do I have to have different strategies and different content for each market? It's kind of like your website. They need to be localized. It's like my example there of the language of Trem and Comboyo. Even a social media strategy has to be localized for the individual market, has to be market specific, client focused in each market. But you can reuse a lot of material. A great example is YouTube. If you've got a YouTube video on your domestic website, there's no reason at all why you can't repurpose that to great benefit on international markets. Just by adding subtitles will do it. That's perfectly fine. Obviously, for China and other markets, it doesn't always work. But Japan, for example, is a very responsive market to YouTube. So is Brazil. So put the videos up there, use it. Just tweak it a bit. And similarly, for most of your social media, you can use and repurpose a lot of your social media. You just need to localize it and use your localized website as a springboard for that. For capturing the local leads and your prospects. With that, I think that really sums up. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. We do have a very brief survey at the end, which is just as I said, it's 5 questions. Please stay online and answer that. We've sort of run out of time. Please let us know if there's anything more that we can help. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity of presenting this to you, and happy exporting to all Maine exporters. Thanks and have a great day.